but it did feel like a turning point for Justin Fields on Monday night. I gave you my theory on Mac Jones was maybe Belichick was trying to embarrass him a little bit after the week of reports that Mac was unhappy with the Patriots, but it wasn't pretty for him. Feels like we've crossed him off the list. But Fields turned a little corner on Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're all seeing is when the draft trade happened, I was pounding the table, partly because people that I know and trust in the NFL were very bullish on Fields. And from a scouting perspective, this guy's a blue chip guy. I mean, I think legitimately when he went to Georgia, he was the number one player in the country. Or he might have been number two, right behind Trevor Lawrence. Like him and Trevor were the same year, 1 and 2. And then we saw him go to Ohio State. We saw the way he played in that playoff game, which at the time was a pretty big upset. Remember when they beat Clemson and he threw, I think, 6 touchdowns. His arm strength is awesome. And then his natural running ability is just pretty elite. I mean, he's one of the fastest quarterbacks. Now, ironically, he plays in a league where probably 2 of the fastest quarterbacks in the history of the league currently play, in Kyler and Lamar. And I don't know if he's quite that like high-end fast. Definitely Kyler's probably the fastest. Lamar's damn fast. He's right behind him. And his natural running ability, and he's big, thick. So, like, my thing always, Guy, is from at least where I'm sitting, the way I've learned about football, the way I think about it now is this is why I pay my coach $12 to $15 million. You know, and I was thinking about today, knowing that we were going to talk about this. And I haven't asked him, but I bet, and he might even say, like, yeah, I didn't waste any time. Because I remember talking to him about it years ago. You know, Veach just gives Andy guys to watch now during the draft. Like, he doesn't watch every player in the draft like he once did with the Eagles. He doesn't waste his time that way. I would imagine on that given draft, like, he wasn't. Now, he might have for fun because he's a football, nut. Just likes watching football players. But, like, did he break down and rank the 4 quarterbacks, right? Or even, like, Kyle's group, the 3. Like, But it's pretty clear, right, let's just use Kyle's group. Of the 3, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, the number one guy he would not take of that crew, right, would be his third, would be Mac Jones. And then to me, it would be a discussion between the two. And I think that he would end up going with Justin Fields because when he factored in the blue chip nature he once did with McNabb, and I just go, Kyle didn't like this guy? Because it's not even debatable. We know that he's even admitted it multiple times. I mean, as I'm recently told Brandon Marshall when they were all in his office the day we were at practice and I Am Athlete was here, that like it was between 2 guys. So you were basically evaluating this huge unknown talent, which I understand being bullish on Trey Lance, and a guy who, listen, I'm not alone on this. And not even just fans were alone on this. A lot of people in the NFL thought this. Like, this guy's a fringe backup skill-wise. And that's who Kyle loved. And ultimately, I think it's fair to say that's really who he okayed the trade to go up. And he was open to be other guys. And he obviously pivoted. But, like, Mac Jones was the reason. Like, I feel pretty good about that when they pulled the trigger. Like, that's where Kyle was leaning at the time. And then I think, whether it be, influence or however he came to the conclusion, athletic ability was more at a premium. But, I mean, that's pretty embarrassing. And I even think, remember I said that it would have been the most arrogant pick in league history. I thought it was pretty crazy at pick 15. Now, I think coaches always view, if you believe the guy's a starter, like pick 15 is definitely not near as crazy as 3. But, like, I think Kenny Pickett at 20. Like, the difference, you just watched the game last night. From a physical skill standpoint, what the fuck is the difference between Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones? Well, I'll tell you, there isn't any. And one guy went in the 4th round. Like, Cousins and Jimmy and these guys, like, none of these guys are top 20 picks. That's always my, like, why are you overpaying for this? Now, you could argue because it was one of those, markets. And recently it's become that where you got to really overpay for the quarterback. But holy shit. I mean, I think it's insane. I will always take the swing. And that was why I was cool with Trey Lance. But Justin Fields you're not drafting a guy to run around, but he is as natural of a runner as you're going to find with that's an elite skill he possesses, right? When you just talk about his speed and then just how comfortable he is in space, right? That's comes very, very natural to the guy.
Yeah, I think there are complicating factors with Mac and Fields that we thought Trey Lance would not have, which is the quality of player around him, right? Trey Lance's surrounding talent is much better than the Patriots or the Bears. The thing with Mac that I will say, because I don't think, and we talked about him a lot last year too, and it was clear immediately that that's not a guy you trade up for in the, with the third overall pick or whatever the case is. But he does have, like, one thing that Albert Breer reported last week and is not wrong about is Mac's situation's pretty fucking weird, right? To go from Josh McDaniels to a defensive coach and a special teams coach as your OC and QB coach. So I do think that is a reality of that situation.
Patricia played small school O-line and judges SEC quarterback.
Okay. That is a reality of that situation, right? Like, there's two different things happening when we talk about Mac. One is just, is this the skill set of a first rounder? And the answer is unequivocally, no, it is not.
Not even debatable.
Right. And then there is also, is he this bad or should he be a little better than this? And I do think he should be a little better than this, but I don't think he is if he's a starting NFL quarterback for his career, it will be a bottom 10 starting NFL quarterback.
100%. I mean, I personally, and obviously when guys get injured and there's, like, to me, he's not a top 32 player. And when I say that, I view him as a backup. Now, obviously he's going to start for a while, but one difference, like, for example, Kirk Cousins, and I think Matt Ryan was the best version of this, is like they never even attempt, and Cousins doesn't attempt. He can't move around. So he never tries to keep a play alive, like even outside the tackle, really. Like, the play's got to happen. He has to just be able to think, fire through his reads, get rid of the ball. And then there's kind of like the Jimmy crew, where Jimmy actually is athletic enough. Like, Carr is a much better version of Jimmy because he can move around, even though he doesn't do it probably enough. But, like, when he does, he has the physical attributes to make the throws. Jimmy kind of does. It never works out. Mac Jones is kind of like of that ilk, but even worse. Actually the same, but he was viewed as like, I'm going to be much more buttoned down than a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I'll never throw picks. I'll just manage. And I think the big reason, like, Belichick fucking went to the pen last night, and you could even argue, like, well, actually that's their starter. He just gave Mac another chance. However you want to describe it, is, Mac, we drafted you to just steer the ship. Well, you are not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. And all these reports about the why, and he views himself as a Pro Bowler, he's starting to kind of get that Baker Mayfield thing that derailed his career. Like, what are you, Mac? Who is telling you should play like this? Like, the thing I will give Cousins a lot of credit. Now, this is also his undoing. He's incapable of doing it. He never takes on that persona. Like, hey guys, I'm going to bail us out of this one, right? He'll just throw it away or get.
He also has a better arm, so he does make more big plays.
But even just over his career, like, it's just between the tackles. That's where I'm going to live. And Mac, that is where you're going to live, bro. But he, like, Kyle to me would be out on him if that was the shit he was doing in college. But he was just managing. Now, you could argue, well, fuck, they had 7 first rounders on the team.
Everyone wide ass open.
And that's the scary part of a guy like that, whose physical skills are bottom 5 in the league, like you said. And to me, he's taken on a persona like, Justin Fields can make these plays and actually make them miraculous. And the difference is, like, I hear you, like his coaching situation. I would say Fields' situation. Last night, he hit multiple plays to fucking Pettis and N'Keal Harry. Like, that is who he's throwing the pill to. And they're not looking bad. Removing him. Mooney's solid. But he is throwing. When I watch the Bears, Pettis is involved, guy.
I know.
Pettis sneaky doesn't look terrible.
No, he doesn't. I thought and I was watching a lot of the Manning cast on Monday night this week, but I thought there was the like, he got a heavy blitz and he kind of checked it down, hit a swing pass to his running back.
McCorkle or Fields?
Fields. And what happened was he goes to throw it and there's an end right there. So he has to drop down and, like, throw this knuckler kind of sidearm as he's getting crushed because there's this all-out blitz coming.
Did he hit him?
He hit him. Hit the running back. Yeah. Hit him.
That was sweet.
Like, he is, to me, the thing that's very clear with him, and it makes sense when you think about where he played, how much he played. His feel is clearly an elite skill, right? Now, his accuracy, he has a lot of career still to play out before he's a franchise quarterback. But I think what you see with him really clearly, and I think when a guy is mobile, you can get a good sense for it very quickly, is feel. And Justin Fields has great feel. He understands how fast he is. He understands how fast the defense is. He understands angles. He understands how far he's got to go. And he understands how to get there. And obviously that's not a part of Mac's game, although I think sometimes this was the Baker problem, right? It was the Johnny Manziel problem when they came into the league. They thought they could make plays behind the line of scrimmage that they made in college. They can't make it in the NFL. And clearly Mac, it's different. Mac's trying to make plays with his arm, and he doesn't have the arm. It's not so much a mobility thing. Sometimes Garoppolo does the same thing, where he tries to make plays with an arm that he does not possess. And I think that's the thing if we're talking about the draft itself. Whereas Trey Lance, like one of the unfortunate parts of Trey Lance is not just that we don't get to see him and evaluate him, but clearly, and I've been talking about this since last year, just in the run game, his feel was not great. And part of it is he's taken a big jump in talent in his opposition and speed. And, there's a lot of bullets flying and there's a lot going on. And Kyle's got a lot in his head and all this stuff that he just really needs time to kind of work it out for himself, right? Just the physical part of the sport before we get to the accuracy, the reading the defenses, the physical part of how much time do I have before I have to either vacate the pocket or throw the football, and that's something that I think Trey needs experience with. And that is one part of Fields' game is clear. I think he's pretty comfortable with. He is the longest time to throw in the NFL. No guy takes longer to get the ball out of their hands.
Justin Fields.
Part of it is he's athletic enough to hold the ball,
Yeah.
Fields.
Well, I would say probably too, he doesn't have the, if we did some breakdown because part of that is like, or his receivers open?
Are his receivers open? Is he reading the defense? This is a question.
That is a knock on him. And this is forever. It was, you couldn't improve accuracy. And now that has been thrown in the garbage. Like that can definitely improve.
And we can improve it for you with the plays we call.
100%. I still think it's impossible to quantify and know and understand how truly coachable the field vision is. Like that's something, the instincts of the position, right? Like there's no right or wrong answer. Some guys clearly improve, and some guys that kind of derails their career. Too much going on, and they never see it. If you believed, and I know clearly there are coaches that believe Kyle would fall under this, and I think the Jets fell under this too, because like Zach Wilson sees things, his decision making is horrendous. Like the knock on Zach Wilson is not that like he can't rattle off shit and tell the playbook. Like he's smart, it's just like, Zach, why did you throw to that guy when this guy's wide open and you were looking at him? He's like, well, he's just kind of all over the map.
Coach.
So I think the way I look at it, I like balls of clay when they're all unknowns, because to me, the only quote unquote known in that group was Trevor Lawrence. Justin Fields was the best ball of clay when you factor in the known. The BYU played nobody that sweet year. Trey Lance is coming from a tiny school that he only played the one season as a starter. And Mac Jones doesn't have the physical skills. So you factor in the one guy who was the elite guy out of high school, who went to Georgia. They made the wrong decision, went to Ohio State, and then led them to a playoff victory. So, and has all the physical attributes. Now, if you want to go, well, he'll never see it. And that might end up being true. But what if he does? That's one of those where it's like, watch the fuck out, because then his ceiling, if he can just get half of what coaches are hoping for, is so much higher than everyone else because his physical attributes are so elite, right? And that's like, for example, do you know what's weird about Kyler Murray? Like no one knocks like, he's just not accurate, doesn't have a good arm, can't find the open guy. Like he has it all, right? You watch him play it. When he's in a rhythm, it's like, this looks pretty good. It's just like, just no one really likes him, doesn't really care.
And on the field, injuries gets hurt.
Yeah, and he's small, right? And that part of that is like some people just have natural instincts over playing whatever their sport is, right?
Yeah.
It just comes very natural to them. Like Jason Kidd took him 5 times to get the bare minimum to get in the Cal ACT. He's like one of the smartest basketball players ever. Magic Johnson, I don't know, if he's fucking some 4.0 student, but like Brett Favre, some of Dan Marino was, Joe Montana, I don't think is the smartest intellectual guy. It's irrelevant when it comes to your sport. But I think the knock on Fields was like his intellectual part of his game. And it's like, There were a couple plays last night. I was with you. I was watching Buck and I was watching the Mannings, but then the game was kind of flipping. I'm like, God, the Bears are really going to win. I went to Buck and Aikman, and there were a couple plays that Fields like clearly went from one wide receiver to the next, and Aikman was like, that's some progress right there. Like, that's pretty impressive. On the road in a misty-ass game. That's the other thing, guy. This is why I got fired in the NFL when I said under no circumstances, ironically, he's been the backup quarterback for the Bills for like 5 straight years. But I was like, Matt Barkley, his arm strength in inclement weather is not going to work. It is not even November 1st. And you flip on that Monday night game, you're like, God, this is Northeast weather. It just felt, and it might not have been that cold, but it just felt dreary, wet, dark. It's like, this is not LA Rams 49ers this Sunday afternoon, right? In 80 degrees with a stadium that's closed, but it's really open. Like that was ugly and feels whoo. And a couple times Aikman was like, you got to put a little more air under that. He's throwing a Brett Favre liner. His ball completely unfazed. Like, if I was a Bears fan, if he can figure that out, Windy City, like, let's roll, right? Like, that shit's going to translate. Where Mac Jones, it just ain't.
No. Well, every part of what Fields is as an athlete is superior, right? The way he throws, the way he runs. I'm not a physical therapist. It looks to me when he runs, it's like I think all his bones are like exactly where they need to be. It's so smooth when he throws. It's so smooth. The spiral is so smooth.
He could play another position in the NFL, right? He could be a hybrid offensive player.
Yeah, it turns out if you run him, then the floor is high, right? Now the question is can you get to the next level with him? We'll see. But it's looking more promising after the decision they made on Monday night. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing.
I just think he just has an immense amount of talent that I just do not understand. And this is what frustrates non-coaches. It's like, you make $14 million. Like, I just don't give a shit how much football you know in your dark office. Like, you got to coach these guys up. I mean, that's your job, to coach. And
I know if
coaches say to teach.
If I could just counter that for one point, I would say if I were a coach and you're making that point to me, I'd say, okay, I don't think this guy sees it. And there's a long list of guys who were athletic enough, but do not see it and don't have it. And I think this is one of those guys, right? Which is basically what the 49ers are saying. What Kyle Shanahan is saying, if he's saying, it wasn't between him and the other guy. Like, to me, I still, we'll see how this thing plays out. I don't have a problem taking the shot on Lance over Fields.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, yeah. I know. That's not the point you're making. But if Fields turns out to be the best guy, and if Fields is just way better than Mac and the same as Trey, we'll see. If Trey's good, then this thing just moves on for Kyle. But we do have a history of Shanahan not evaluating quarterbacks who turn out to be really good quarterbacks.